Dear colleagues, agree with me that it's very difficult to change from one brand to another when you are trying to find a better pigment. Because permanent makeup is about the color today, in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years. How does it retain in the skin? What undertone the client has? What is the outcome of client's undertone and the pigment? And it is quite a jungle for a new permanent makeup artist to find out which type of pigment shall he or she choose, organic or mineral or hybrid. For experienced artists, there are already a lot of brands which work very nice, but we are still trying to find, as experienced artists, something which is more stable in the skin, something which is quicker to work with, something which is perfect for ombre, shadow techniques or hair strokes. All the modern techniques with pixel or gradual color change, eyebrows, eyeshadows, lips, we try to find a perfect match to each modern technique and area where we work at. So I welcome all new beginners and all experienced artists to PMU-line educational video about the pigments. Why do they retain the color perfectly well? Not getting very gray as organic pigments after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, not turning into reddish, orange, green undertone after already half a year or 1 year, which we see in many other brands as mineral pigments do. The simple answer is because we have, based on our experience of work with only mineral pigments, then only organic pigments, now we have developed a perfect combination of organic and mineral pigment, which is called hybrid. That's why it's called hybrid. We have used the advantages from both worlds of organic and mineral base. We have created a color chart which is very detailed for you to read. So it's not only the color, it's also the recommendation of which type of technique you use: soft hair strokes, machine hair strokes and ombre, or microblading hair strokes and hair strokes, stabilizers, correctors, I will get back to it later, lips, and in each column you would also see the type of the appearance, the type of the complexion: white skin, pale skin, dark skin, Mediterranean skin, red hair, blonde, etc. And some of the pigments which I used for microblading hair strokes, they suit perfectly well also for hair strokes technique for the machine. Of course, you would see the base of the pigment. If it's neutral, it's yellow base, warm or cool. We have also added a short description for which type of client, which type of the result you should use this or that pigment. In correctors and stabilizers, we have different shades which help you in treatments which we call troubleshooting, when the client already has some unwanted color and you need to correct it or stabilize it before you can create something new. Of course, if this client is suitable for that. Sometimes it's so dark or so wrong shape that we have to remove it before we start creating something new. But what is the difference between stabilizer and corrector? Corrector is type of pigment which we use already on something which has a wrong color. For example, you have a client with violet eyebrows or with gray lips. Then you need to correct the color which is already healed in the skin. Then you use corrector on the top of the whole area, and then on the top of the corrector you use the wanted pigment. What is a stabilizer? Stabilizer is an additional pigment which helps you to keep the shade of the pigment you choose stable, to more to warm or more to cool, depending on which client you work. So stabilizer we add maybe half of one drop to another pigment we use for mostly for eyebrows. The pigments are REACH compatible. This is of course the most important for us when we produce it in Europe and when we deliver it to European PMU artists. And of course there are different other certifications. Let's see how the hybrid pigment behaves in the water, because the water would always show us if it's organic based or mineral based. Then the pigment will move or straight to the bottom or will be on the surface of the water, or you will see like very nice lines of pigment from the top to bottom. And I will tell you why it's so interesting to see it. That movement, that nice color in the water which falls down, it shows you that there is some organic base. What is on the bottom of the glass, it's our minerals, and what is on the top of the glass, it's also both minerals and organic base, and we can see it here. Nothing migrates, it stays in the cotton pad as I put it in. And now to show you the difference how organic pigment would behave. So you could really see why combination of minerals and organic base, synthetic base, would give you better color retention. Now I take pigment from the other brand, which is organic. You see how much it moves in the water. And on the surface we have some pigment remaining. And when I take the cotton pad, the color is absorbed in it. It means the molecular size much smaller in organic pigment, and that is why it can migrate in the skin much quicker than we want it. We would like to retain hair strokes, and then after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of refilling, retouching the hair strokes, we would still see that pigment migrates to the sides. And it does happen with organic pigments. With mineral pigment, when you put the pigment in the skin, the mineral is a little bit bigger. It cannot migrate deeper. The mineral stays where you put it. Then why do we need to use organic base at all at our pigments? Why don't we do pure mineral pigments if we want to avoid migration? Migration is not the only sign of the quality of the permanent makeup. The color, stable shade, this is also another characteristic which we need to make sure is perfect. And in this case, minerals can change color, can be oxidated in the skin and turn to lighter or cooler shades. That's why many people are afraid of using mineral pigments. They don't want clients to walk around with red or orange or yellow eyebrows. And this consideration we have already worked with and decided to use the mineral base for the sake of not migrating and the organic base for the sake of the color pigment, stable color. So both of these pigment worlds, they could be combined in a perfect match of something which is mechanically stable in the skin and chemically, would mean the color, also stable in the skin. When we work with organic and mineral-based pigment, it feels like you have a vase and you have sand and you have small pearls. Pearls, it's minerals. When you put them, there still would be space in between. Of course, it makes sense if it's only mineral. When we put organic base, when we put sand in this vase, which is filled with pearls, the sand will complete the gaps. It will mean that the hair stroke you do on the client, it will have perfect connection. It will be crispy, it will be tight, it will be not transparent. So both synthetic particles and mineral particles, they combine in a good coverage. Why do PMU-line pigments not change the color shade to very warm or very cool like normal mineral pigments would do? We have two secrets. The first one is that we use medical technology which is called biocoating, because PMU-line pigments are produced in medical lab, and in medical lab you have possibility to, first of all, to make the purest pigment. So even patients with chemotherapy or other autoimmune diseases, when they are going through some treatments, we can treat them. But the other thing you can do in a medical lab, you can use technology which is called biocoating. When we biocoat the pigment, it gets the pH level the same as at our skin. So our skin, our immune system would not see this pigment, this new molecule which came in our dermis as an enemy. It would not try to destroy it, oxidate it. It will analyze it. Of course, there would be 5-7 days healing as it's normal after permanent makeup. But the reaction of the skin immune system is much calmer if you compare it with pigment which is not biocoated. So what we do, we try to cooperate with our immune system using biocoating technology to cover the pigment particles so they look like something which was already in the skin, because the pH level is the same. So our macrophages, they cannot destroy and change the color of the pigment, not now, not in 1 year. It can get a little bit warmer or a little bit cooler. There would be some change in pigment always, but we talk about 10%. We don't talk 90% of change as we see in pure mineral pigments. And the second thing is how our pigment retain a stable color is that when a mineral base has some added of organic base, then of course carbon black would make the color more stable, so it won't get red or orange or yellow. So our organic base, our synthetic base helps to keep the color stable, and at the same time our mineral base helps to keep the color on the same place without migration and avoid this grayish tone which normally organic pigment would have after some years, maybe already after 1 year in some skin. So mineral base doesn't let the pigment to get into a very gray full color effect. And organic base helps to avoid turning into reddish or greenish or orange, etc. We have also developed PMU fixator. It can be used as aftercare cream. It can be used as only professional product when the client has just finished her treatment. We put it on, doesn't matter if it's eyebrows, eyeliner or lips. It will cover the skin, so it doesn't look like glue, but it feels like light cream, but it will prevent that lymph is coming out with pigment, and it will calm skin down, so the pigment retention will be better, and the client which was bleeding a lot during the treatment, this process would stop. For the client who is not good to retain the color, if you already have worked with this client for some years, then the pigment fixator would be a great help for you. To sum up, PMU-line pigments are legal after the new rules and regulations and REACH law. They are vegan, they are not tested on animals, they have both mineral and organic base, that's why we call them hybrid pigments. It's the new generation pigment because it has biocoating technology involved in the production process, which means the pigment is on the same pH level as our skin, so our immune system doesn't try to oxidate iron oxides in the pigment, minerals in the pigment, turning the result on eyebrows, for example, to red or green or yellow after some months. The pigment retains the color stable. You can use correctors to correct other people's work with unwanted shade of violet or red or gray. You can turn it into brown. You can use our stabilizer to work again on somebody who already has some bad result or some unwanted shade, and you take our shade, but you still are concerned about the shade which is in the skin, for example, with a little bit of reddish, but not completely red. And then you would think, okay, if I use a warm pigment, would it be more red? Then we have stabilizer, which is called less red drops. Then we have a stabilizer which is called less red drops, and we can add a couple of less red to this brown pigment and use on the client which already has some reddish eyebrows to prevent it don't turn more red. With PMU-line pigments, you can be sure that your hair strokes will remain as hair strokes. They won't migrate together like it happens with pure organic pigments. You can be sure the color retention of brown tones, ash brown, blonde tones, it will still have the same color. It would be just lighter, a little bit more gray, but far away from that gray undertone that pure organic pigment would do. And because the mineral in our hybrid pigments would prevent it, would prevent change in the color. And you can create the most wonderful brown shades with our pigments because they have minerals which can give you amazing brown color and blonde shade. If you are still very concerned in changing into a new line, then I would suggest you start with the pigments which have yellow base. So you and the lighter pigments generally, because the darker shade is always more difficult to control. Start working with light shades and yellow base, so you can feel how our pigment works into the skin. You can see how quick you can work in the skin, because the molecula, some are bigger, some are smaller, it gets very smooth, it doesn't dry out during the treatment, it's very, very economic. One bottle you can use at least for 35-40 treatments, because you have a controlled airless system. You can put half a drop, one drop, and trust me, don't take 4 or 5 drops like you maybe do with the other pigment. Try to take only 2 drops and see how long time you actually use these 2 drops, because the pigment doesn't dry out during the treatment, and it gets very, very smoother into the skin. When we work like that, then our treatment time is also quicker. You can do a perfect job already after 40-45 minutes if normally you used 1.5 hours. If you already are on 40-45 minutes for full treatment, then you do it on 25-30 minutes. So you can easily take 30% of your normal treatment time away, because our pigments would allow you to work quicker, they get quicker into the skin, and it heals quicker. And what you also can be sure of for lip pigment. Lips is the area where if it goes wrong and we need to remove the color with laser, then it's actually very, very important that we know exactly how the color will behave. And if the color is fine when your student, let's say, done it, or you are a new beginner and you made a little bit asymmetric lips and you need to remove just some edge which is on the skin and not on the lip, or maybe on the edge of the lip, then you could be quite concerned if the color would change into gray or black or blue because of the iron oxides. I would guarantee you it would not happen, because the lips pigments in PMU-line, they are mostly organic based, and we have amazing variety of lip shades, from very, very light to something cool and intense to rose. We have pigments for Asian and dark skin for lips to take the coolness away. Our lips pigments, they have mostly organic base. That's why they are suitable both for laser treatment removal, and they are suitable also for clients who have very cool violet, blue undertone, gray undertone in the lips. You can neutralize it. We have fresh lips drops pigment, which makes, it's like a pigment heater, but it doesn't make them orange or red. You can still use cool color on the client with grayish lips, as long as you put fresh lips drops. And fresh lips drops you find in the category of our must-haves. You also find allergy test, you also find color booster. Color booster, it looks like diluter, but it's not. We also have diluter. Booster suits perfectly well to thick skin or oily skin, or people with acne. Their skin would also reject most of the pigment. Color booster would not make it cooler, would not make it warmer, it will make it brighter. So you can use it both on eyebrows, on lips, on eyeliner, to make it more vivid. Our pigments for eyeliner also has mostly organic base. That's why you can be sure in very stable dark color, and you are able to make the softest shadowing techniques, because the molecular in organic base is smaller than a mineral base, so you can really stretch the pigment for shadows. Our microblading line is a hybrid line, and our eyebrows for machine pigments is also a hybrid. Hybrid pigments would ensure your stable result, which doesn't migrate, which has the same color but lighter in 1 or 2 years, which is suitable for shadowing techniques, hair strokes techniques. For lips, it's mostly organic base. For eyebrows, it depends if it's microblading or machine shadowing. You would see it, of course, in the color index. We don't use alcohol, we don't use paraben as bacteria killer. We can treat people with any autoimmune system, with any hormone disbalance, because the pigment is produced in the medical lab, and it's the purest color agents, color index, the color particles are in the pigment. We wish you good luck and success. Start with the lightest pigments with neutral base, and then move more and more to medium pigments and darker pigments, and discover a new world when you can control the color. Good luck to you.